Israel Chai! Israel's extending the death penalty, but could it only apply to Palestinians? Hanging is now the standard punishment for people convicted of terrorism, or who, in the words of the law, kill to negate the existence of the State of Israel.
From today onward, every terrorist will know, and the whole world will know, he who takes a life, the State of Israel will take his life.
The controversial law was pushed by Israel's far right, but campaigners say it's inhumane.
The way the law is drafted makes sure that only Palestinians will be sentenced to death.
So how could this new death sentence be used? And why is Israel introducing it now? Here's the breakdown with Susanna Rogerson.
This is the moment Israel's parliament made the death penalty the default punishment for Palestinians convicted of deadly terrorism. Death by hanging will now be the punishment for Palestinians tried in the military courts of the Israeli-occupied West Bank, and there'll be no right to appeal. Israel's national security minister celebrated the law passing while wearing a noose pin. He's been pushing for the death penalty for years.
In our country, with our sovereignty, we'll protect our citizens, and a terrorist who goes out to kill should know he will go up to the gallows.
The West Bank is an area that covers most of the internationally recognised occupied Palestinian territory. It has been under Israeli occupation since 1967 and is home to almost 3 million Palestinians, as well as 500,000 settlers from Israel. The new legislation has been criticised by many human rights groups and governments around the world. The UK, Italy, Germany and France put out a joint statement saying the legislation could undermine Israel's commitments to democratic principles. Inside Israel, the law can be applied to Israeli citizens, but only if they're convicted of killing to negate the existence of Israel. That means, in practice, it would almost exclusively apply to Palestinians.
We are more used to having countries abolishing death penalties. And on top of that, this would be an extraordinary discriminatory law because it would basically target only one category of the population.
Israel says the new law will not apply to any prisoners it currently holds. This includes Hamas militants and those who attacked the country on October 7, 2023, triggering the Israel-Hamas war in the Gaza Strip. Separate legislation will be voted on for those convicted of taking part in that attack. The law requires a majority vote from judges rather than a unanimous decision. It also calls for execution by hanging within 90 days of sentencing, with some allowance for a delay. The death penalty is illegal in many liberal democracies, but is still allowed in some states of the USA. The countries which executed the most people in recent years are China, Iran, and Saudi Arabia. For Israel, the new legislation marks a significant shift.
Adolf Eichmann has had his defense rejected.
The last person executed following a civilian trial was the Nazi war criminal Adolf Eichmann in 1962. But Israel's new law brings the death penalty out of black and white and into the present day.
Thanks, Susanna. Now, this law could still be stopped by Israel's own Supreme Court, and people have already been fighting to have it overturned. But either way, this is a big shift in the way Israel treats prisoners. While the death penalty has existed for many years, historically, even those convicted of the most serious crimes have been jailed, not killed. Now, among those pushing for the law to be cancelled is the campaign group Amnesty. They've fought for a long time against the death penalty. I'm going to bring in now their researcher, Budour Hassan. She's Palestinian and was born blind in the West Bank. Budour, thanks so much for joining us. Where are you at the moment?
I'm based in Ramallah, in the occupied West Bank.
I just wanted to get your take, first of all, on what's happening at the moment and Israel bringing in this proposed death penalty for Palestinians.
So yesterday we saw how Israeli members of parliament celebrated the passing of a law which expands the use of the death penalty, mainly targeting Palestinians. Toasts of champagne, celebrations, screams of partying, all because of the passing of a death penalty law. This death penalty law has been in the discussions for quite some time, actually. It's not new. It has been discussed for years. And whenever a right-wing Israeli politician wants to win more votes, increase their popularity, they start saying, we want to impose the death penalty of what they call terrorists. So with the enactment of this law, we have now a reality in which those who are convicted of intentionally killing another person, the way the law is drafted makes sure that only Palestinians mainly will be targeted, will be sentenced to death. And death only. Why this law is very extreme? Because one, it doesn't allow a pardon. Pretty much the vast majority of death penalty measures allow the convicts, those sentenced, to be pardoned. The imposition of the death sentence within just 90 days of its issuance. All of that means that you have a death penalty law with so few safeguards, meaning we're talking about one of the most extreme death penalty provisions in the world.
I mean, to put it bluntly, do you think this law is racist?
Absolutely. The second track dedicated for Israel does not say that only Palestinians can be convicted and can be sentenced to death. However, what it says is those who commit killings with the aim of negating the existence of the state of Israel. It means that effectively, the people who will be accused, so it didn't say based on state security. Obviously, we know Amnesty opposes death penalty regardless, unconditionally. But to put it in such a discriminatory manner, to specifically basically make sure that this law would target one segment of the population, which is only Palestinians, to deprive those convicted of the most basic safeguards, including fair trial and including due process, including the right to be pardoned, effectively means that, yes, we are talking about a tool of apartheid. Simple as that.
I mean, the Israelis in favour of this would argue that they've got to have a deterrent to avoid another October the 7th. I just wondered what your thoughts are on that.
In no context do we believe that the death penalty can deter, neither statistically nor in principle. And it's only going to deepen discrimination, and it's only going to fuel more and more violations because it's reinforcing impunity and reinforcing apartheid.
I mean, with this punishment in mind, what do you think the future of the occupied territories look like to you?
Unfortunately, I can attest to the present, Minnie. The present in the occupied Palestinian territory is quite grim. In the West Bank, where I live, where I'm based, with constant restrictions on the freedom of movement, with daily attacks on Palestinian by settlers, again enjoying the support and near total impunity. So we're talking about a present that is absolutely horrendous. A present that is the result of decades of impunity that Israel has enjoyed.
Just finally, I just wanted to get your take. Do you think that the war in Iran has been a distraction in a way from what's been happening in Palestine?
Yeah, it's been actually one of the typical ploys of especially this current government. So, for example, in the immediate aftermath of the 7th of October, the amount of restrictions and violence that was used against Palestinians in the West Bank has been unprecedented. And since then, the demolitions, the killings, we're talking about the establishment of illegal settlements. All of this is happening under the cover of the war. And Israel has basically used this war in order to deepen the discrimination and deepen the attacks against Palestinians. And this is precisely why it's so important to try and challenge this narrative. It's so important to challenge the fact, yes, that we know that the world is preoccupied elsewhere, but that doesn't mean allowing Israel to get away with these violations, with these daily violations against Palestinians and their rights.
Budour, thanks so much for joining us and breaking that all down for us. Now, the Jewish Power Party, which passed the law, says the death penalty is needed to stop Palestinians from carrying out deadly attacks or kidnapping Israelis to later use in a swap deal for imprisoned Palestinians. And Israel's Prime Minister has previously claimed those committing violence in the West Bank do not represent the majority of law-abiding settlers, while the Israeli Prison Service says it always obeys the law and makes sure all inmates are held in adequate living conditions with access to medical care. That's the breakdown. Thanks for watching. See you next time.